Hello, my friend. In this video, there are three things that I'm going to want to cover. First are the two types of ads that I recommend running to grow your Spotify. And we are also going to be moving into how you can manage your money in terms of budgeting these different campaigns and how you can kind of uncover, you can look at your own financial situation in order to uncover more budget to invest in your music career. And the third thing we're going to go into is diving into the time commitment that you're going to want to put into running Facebook ads to grow your Spotify and to work on your music career in general. I think it's important to have a good idea of how much you should be spending and try to keep it as low as possible, particularly when there's no ROI, like I mentioned in a previous video, where it's a little bit more intangible, like you're trying to trigger an algorithm and you're looking for the more long-term benefits. I think it's important to make sure that you're spending money in a way that will allow you to stay long-term. And then also going into the time aspect of this, how much time you should be putting in to this kind of stuff, particularly when you're starting, and then eventually what you want to get to, because I think it's important to, when you're starting anything, you want to spend a bit more time into it so you get immersed into it and really learn it. But then at a certain point, you don't want to be spending your whole day becoming some kind of mathematics major in Facebook ads. You want to get it done as quickly as possible so you can do cool things like working on new music and new opportunities that might come up. You want to be able to spend time on that kind of stuff, and really put Facebook ads and that kind of stuff in the back burner and allow it to just happen almost automatically on autopilot kind of thing. So you're not spending all day on that kind of stuff. So with that said, this clip that we're going to be jumping into is actually a clip from a live workshop that I did on Facebook ads. So if you'd like to know about any other workshops that I'm going to be doing, we also always follow them up with a live Q&A portion as well. Check out the link in the description. You can grab the 7-step release checklist that I have. It's completely free to download, and it's the 7 steps that I follow every time that I'm releasing music. So you can check that out, and you'll get that free checklist, and you'll also be on the mailing list where you'll be able to hear about new workshops that are coming up and all that. They're not always going to be on Facebook ads for Spotify. It's going to be all sorts of interesting music career topics. So definitely check that out. And with that said, let's jump into this. So when it comes to the type of ad campaigns that you're generally going to want to run, there are generally two types. And so if we look at kind of a week or a month rather, and just to make it simple, let's assume there's only 4 weeks in the month. There's generally two that I would recommend running. One is that ongoing playlist campaign that I know most of you on this call are running already, which is great. And then in addition to that is the new release campaign. So the idea is to have the ongoing playlist campaign always running, kind of building up streams to your back catalog. And then you have the new release campaign just for the first, usually I would just do the first 2 or 3 weeks. I've actually even been slowing it down and even just doing the first week only based on how many Spotify followers I have. But again, the idea here is to use those new release campaigns to trigger the algorithm as quickly as possible, because the release radar is the first 28 days only. So you really want to maximize that. And then also one nice thing about the ongoing playlist campaign is that it also acts as a little bit of a fallback when, say, your new release campaign doesn't do as good. So as you're doing new release campaigns, you might notice that some do really great and some just do completely awful. And it could be because of the song. It could have been some new tests you were running. But if you have that ongoing playlist campaign and you've been building up the followers on that playlist, you can always chuck that new song in that second spot, and that'll kind of still help that song along. So generally, in terms of costs, I'm usually looking around $50 for the month with ongoing playlist campaigns, so $2 or $3 a day. And for the new release campaigns, I'm usually spending about $150 for that first week or two or so that I'm running them. I've actually been experimenting with bringing that down. And generally, this is kind of where I'd recommend starting off. How much you spend on this is really, it's going to be a lot about your own personal budget and what your threshold is with this. I know some artists, they see this and they want to spend way more. I actually wouldn't go too high because, again, just kind of want to bring things back to what we were talking about earlier. You're spending money here to trigger the algorithms and really nothing else. So you don't want to dump too much money into these ads is the way I would look about it. And if you're finding that these numbers aren't something that you can reach right now, I will have links. I think I'm going to put links in the bottom of each of these. I'll put this out as a PDF as well. There is a little course that I put out called the Money Management course if you haven't checked it out, and that'll help you. It has a couple of different ways for you to kind of work through managing your money and how to conceptualize, I guess, finances and stuff like that. But the main thing is that there is a video and a kind of a Excel spreadsheet budget, as lame as that is to say, that goes into how you can kind of really look at where you're spending money in areas of your life and see where you can kind of cut some stuff out to carve out openings. So that way, instead of maybe, this is a very typical one to say, but maybe instead of spending money on Netflix and even for your Spotify account, a bunch of things like that, that money can be reallocated into an actual investment into your own music career. So that's something I would definitely recommend taking a look at. Then moving on beyond that, moving a little bit further, we also want to look into budgeting our time here when it comes to running these ads. So at the minimum, you're going to be wanting to spend about 30 to 60 minutes every 3 to 4 days. So generally almost like once a week, if you want to think of it that way. And the main reason for that is every 3 to 4 days is when you're going to want to run a new test. And we're going to get into that a lot in the optimization portion of this call. And 30 to 60 minutes is just about enough time that you can look at the results that you've gotten in the last week or so, decide on some new tests, and then hopefully quickly create a new ad campaign for you to test against the one you were just running. We'll get a little bit into that more, but this is kind of the minimum that you should be spending on these ad campaigns. Ideally, you want to be spending as little as possible. That's at least what I want, but you should know that when you're first starting out, you're going to want to spend a little bit more time than that, because you're going to be testing new ideas and experimenting with a whole bunch of different stuff. So it's important to kind of budget a little bit more time, especially at the beginning. And kind of almost with anything, the more time and effort that you put in, the more that you'll get back. So if you get a little bit more obsessive almost with this, so you're like really digging into your stats and coming up with ideas of new tests that you can run, and maybe you're obviously watching some of my videos, but then looking at other people's video on YouTube and stuff like that. There's a bunch of great creators out there also. Quickly mention some actually. There's Andrew Southworth, who's amazing, and Tom Dupree, who's amazing. A bunch of people like that are out there talking about Facebook ads as well. And if you kind of like also spend some time looking at what they're doing, you'll learn a little bit more and come up with some great ideas as well. So that's what we're going to talk about with budgeting our time. And again, there's a little guide that I have in the course area that you should have access to that goes over a bunch of this. It's the time management guide. So before we move on to the more advanced stuff, just going to kind of really hammer home this one point here, because mission number one before you really push forward here is to make sure that you get that ongoing playlist campaign running nicely. And the main reason for that is because you want to learn to walk before you run. A stupid little, basic little advice there. But the main reason for that is, I'm sure most of you know, is you can actually see how many streams you're getting directly from a playlist in the back of the Spotify for Artists dashboard. So as you're setting things up, as you're trying different things, different targeting, all that, you can monitor the actual result that you're getting in the Spotify for Artists dashboard to make sure that the hard-earned money that you're spending is actually turning into streams, which I think is incredibly important. Hello again, my friend. Hopefully that gave you some interesting perspective on the kinds of Facebook ad campaigns that you're going to be wanting to run to grow your music career, and kind of why, and the money and time that's going to go into those. And then also more generally having a look at the money that you're going to put into these campaigns and how you can find ways to spend more if you'd like to, but I feel like kind of keeping it pretty tight is a good idea. And then also really diving into some of the ideas that you might want to think about when it comes to how much time that you're going to put into this stuff. I think it's, again, important to start off by putting a bit more time as you kind of figure everything out and make sure everything's working correctly, and really learn a new skill before jumping into kind of the idea of putting it on autopilot and moving into making it so you're doing this kind of Facebook ad stuff with as minimal time as possible, so you can do more interesting things like writing music and looking at different opportunities that might be coming up and interesting new projects, all that like really cool stuff. I think that's kind of the best way to go about this. So enough rambling there. And again, if you wanted to check out the opportunity to join any of these workshops going forward, make sure you jump into the description box below and grab that 7-step release checklist. Again, it's the 7 steps that I follow every time that I'm releasing a new song on Spotify. It's a little bit more of that autopilot part of things, but it's what you can work towards, and it shows each and every single step with resources under each step so that you can learn a little bit more why it's an important step and how you can complete that step as best as possible. And then it'll also let you join my mailing list, where I'll let you know about new workshops that I might be coming out with, as well as just kind of doing almost daily emails over there. So lots of new tips and sharing new things that I'm working on and all that kind of good stuff. I think you'll get a lot out of it, particularly if you're a fan of the channel. So with that said, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. But I think the main thing is, let's move you over to the mailing list, and that's where like a lot of the cooler stuff is happening. Nothing against YouTube, but anyways, enough rambling. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one, my friend. Have a good one.